Hey, it's George. I just want to say thank you for listening to this Trainer Spotlight episode. Let's not waste any time and get right into it. Coach, what's going on? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Most people simply know me by my first and last name, Eric Buratty, and that's spelled Eritty. And that remains consistent across all platforms and domains. So if you were to do a Google search, and this is how people know me personally and professionally. In terms of my education history, I did graduate from Salisbury University back in 2011. And since that time, I've been heavily involved in the health and fitness world. I've written for a few online publications. I've published my own book, actually books, plural. The most recent being Make America Fit Again. And you can find that on Amazon. And I believe some third party sellers also carry that, like Barnes and Noble. But my ideal clients that I work with now tend to be, I guess, more so like the 40 to 60-year-old population with their age range. And they're just trying to get unstuck or trying to reverse or undo some of the stress they've accumulated on certain joint areas. Whereas when I first started out in the fitness world, I was more into like the aesthetic goals. So, your typical, I want to improve my body composition, that sort of thing. And, if that's what people are about, that's exciting, for them, that's great. But I find more excitement and I gravitate mostly towards people that are, in the preventative maintenance side of things. So that is mostly along the lines of what I do when I operate out of the private studio that I train at in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And then when I also do, like, I travel to people's houses and I also cater to people within recreation community centers locally.
It's great getting to know you as a coach, but you're not a coach 24/7. So, can you tell me a funny or interesting story about yourself that happened either in your practice as a coach or in your normal life outside of coaching?
Thanks for having me, George. My funny story dates back to almost 15 years ago, and I remember it like it was yesterday because this still pops up within today's personal and professional interactions. I was working at Vitamin Shop as an assistant store manager. And for anyone listening that's unfamiliar, Vitamin Shop is your retail supplement, customer service based supplement store. And like all customer service positions, we have our easygoing customers and our difficult customers. This one older gentleman who was a regular of ours, he always came in like to joke around with me and the other employees. And I remember this one time specifically, he came in and, he's asking for something to help with his libido, testosterone, sex drive, and just blood flow as a whole. So your cardiovascular health supplement stuff too. And so when he asked this, I whipped out my arm and with my index finger, I start drawing with the veins on my arm like a map. I'm like sifting through, say, well, you're going to make a left over here into stress management. And then right after you get through stress management, you'll see a digestive support section. And then after you see that section, you're gonna cruise right on down. And I'm still just like, I'm just still mapping this out with my index finger. I'm pointing on my arm with my veins. So that's, we both start laughing and he's like, "Oh, that's a good one, man." He's like, "I can tell you work out and stuff." And this still pops up a lot, like I said, with personal and professional interactions today, because especially like after a workout or maybe after like a solid quality high protein meal, what have you, I can still pull this, still pull this and get away with it because, yeah, people have a good time with it. It's like using my own arm for a map. So,
What strategies do you use to attract and retain clients in your personal training business? I think we can all learn from each other here, and we'll probably find some answers to be quite similar to one another. But I'm really interested to hear what strategies and things you use to get new clients and keep the ones you currently have.
Honestly, man, I'm just a huge fan of keeping things simple when it comes to attracting and retaining clients. I know in today's world, it's rather easy to get distracted or caught up in a lot of the bells and whistles and complex marketing strategies, rather, in terms of trying to like reel people in, like you're fishing to attract and retain clients. And you're using like all these, I don't know, like these psychological hacks to get people emotionally involved into the process of trading, and like you're trying to sell them something. And I'm like, that's great and all, but my approach, I just like being a good person at the end of the day. And what I mean by that is you're training somebody like you're treating them. The way you train people is the way you treat people, and vice versa. If you don't have a good personality, or you don't have good standards, good moral ethical codes about you, none of that other stuff is actually gonna work or pan out in the long run. Yeah, you might be able to sell people some training packages in the short run, but it's not gonna withstand the test of time if somebody doesn't have some sort of baseline moral ethical code about being a good person. So that's really where it all comes back to for me. It's just being a good person when it comes to attracting and retaining clients.
Let's say you get a new client. What's your process for assessing their fitness level, addressing their goals, and other things they express as being important? We all have different methods and can learn a lot from each other. Let's open the door and share some of our secrets.
So let's just keep it real once again. I like asking people what health and fitness means to them. That answer that they give us will give you a huge clue into what area you need to lean into as a coach to give that client the service that they are hiring you for, or potentially hiring you for, if they're still in that, you're in that prospect state. You're trying to convert them into more of a consistent customer, a paying client, basically. Another thing that we can do from an assessment standpoint is keeping things simple once again, looking at observing the way they move and function on a day-to-day level. So the way they walk on flat surfaces, the way they might climb up and down a flight of steps, the way they might pick something up from the floor. All of these are huge clues into, say, the potential stress they might carry when they perform a functional exercise, when they're trying to do something to strengthen their body. So that's probably the best way to do it. Of course, we can use basic mobility things. We can pull a lot of strategies from the mobility courses, and we can look at hip external, internal rotation, perform overhead reaches. Look at the way they're bending at their hips, forwards, backwards, the degrees to which they can achieve a certain range of motion. But I'm like, let's just look at the way they move too first. The way they might bend down and pick up, something from the floor. So I just try to keep it simple when it comes to that.
I'm a huge fan of continuing education, and I'm building FITLETE to give trainers more efficient access to education that solves their clients' problems. We all look at problem solving differently, and taking different courses, obtaining certifications, and going to new conferences can help us learn from one another. How do you continually develop your skill set as a trainer?
My primary certification is through ACE. And since 2011, I have obtained a series of CEUs, your continuing education units, through weightlifting, nutrition, muscle testing, animal flow level 1, level 2 certifications. And just, I guess, in terms of staying updated on the latest fitness trends and research, I'm just always aware and observant over what matters to people, whether it's coaches or the clients themselves. So going back to that question that I asked earlier when I was answering the assessment question, what does health and fitness mean to people? And then obviously you're diving into the trends with social media and seeing what people are into. And you kind of also get back to the heart of what matters too when you're taking into account not just the art, the prescription of exercise, but the science to it, and just staying very aware and cognizant over the adaptation process. So when I refer to adaptations, I'm talking about the blood supply, nerve supply. And to just keep things simple, once again, the body gets good at what it does. It's the specificity principle of training, basically. And if you keep a certain series of variables constant and measure them over time and are aware enough of that, or you just document them in your spreadsheets or whatever, Microsoft Drive, Google Drive document you have going, you can kind of, make your own science as you go along, because we can do PubMed searches and follow some doctors and stuff that we trust. They have a reputation about them and they're good people at the end of the day. But I think it's also a good behavior, good habit as coaches to be able to keep the basics in mind, perform them at a high enough level, and then be able to prescribe them at a level that people can do that's also consistent to what health and fitness matters means to them as well.
The fitness industry is rapidly evolving before our eyes. How do you envision your personal training business evolving with it in the next few years? I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about this, because we have to plan for the future and a future we want for our business. And while all of our businesses might have the same basic goal of helping people with their fitness, we can structure them in very different ways from one another.
I think the most obvious way to evolve my current personal training business in the next few years, and if we're keeping it real, also kind of speaking for coaches as a whole, for anyone listening, I think the best way, course of action, would be to transition into more of that online training scenario, whether you are conducting your training sessions through some sort of third party app, or you are designing programs and selling them online as kind of like your bread and butter. If you find a way to get into those two areas, I think that's the best way uh, to withstand the test of time, or just be like sustainable in the next few years. So I think that's probably going to be the most practical way that I would like to dive into, and without spending several hours when it comes to maintenance of a gym space, rather, which would be the second tier answer to that, is to evolve my own training business currently would be to find some sort of space where I can operate and function and just help people get unstuck instead of only focusing on the aesthetic goals.
I know challenges are all over the place in the fitness industry and personal training. Information is available in different formats. Clients are more easily misled by gurus and charlatans. Social media's influence is becoming more and more ingrained in people's lives. And now we have AI. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges currently facing the fitness and personal training industry?
I think the biggest challenge we face in the current personal training and fitness world is we're at competition with the rate at which information travels, which is extremely fast now. People are obtaining the vast majority of their information for free, mind you, through social media apps and through online sources that they are no longer seeing the same value into personal training when they can just get it for free through this other source. So honestly, I think that's the biggest challenge. We're competing also with this concept of real versus fake. We're living in a world, once again, where instant gratification becomes this new expectation, and that's a very fake expectation to have, and it's not gonna be sustainable over the long run. It's gradual, consistent, small efforts on a day-to-day basis. It's the lifestyle part that we're losing from this battle, is teaching people about the lifestyle instead of it's, this is some overnight success thing. You can just take this or that pill, or you can just do, just use this word, just do this, just do that. And people like their lists. So if you look online and you say, this is how content is made. Oh, 3 ways to blah, 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 or the top 5 products for blah, blah, blah. And then that's how content is made. So just for the sake of content, we're also competing in a world where coaches themselves are trying to like push their content to compete with other coaches, when that's getting in the way of truly making a difference in the people's lives that we're trying to help.
Eric, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some great info about yourself. Eric and I have actually known each other for quite some time now. He was one of the first coaches or one of the first group of coaches to sign up when I had a different version of FITLETE available on the web. It was similar, but not the exact same. We've actually been friends on Instagram since about 2018, I think, but I had known of him before that time. And yeah, I'm glad you guys got to know Eric a little bit more. I believe he's a great coach, and you should get to know him a little bit more yourself. And if you want to get to know him, check the show notes for the best way to get in contact. And that's all for this episode. I hope you've learned a lot. And if you want to learn more about FITLETE and possibly get your own episode, please visit fitlete.com. That's FITLETE.com. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon.